Chris Lanaux, a.k.a. Crippa, Raging Cajun football analyst, as promised, joins me to kick off the 8 o'clock hour and discuss last night's matchup. Chris, first off, man, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I've got a few minutes to spend with you. Scott, I got to tell you, I listened to you and Gus earlier this morning, and I've got a little bone to pick with mostly Gus. I don't blame you, but I blame Gus a little bit.
Uh-oh.
And he didn't bring it up. But, despite the fact of the Pelicans losing yesterday and the Saints, back of a letter word, they just kind of suck right now. They've had their ups and downs, mostly downs. The city is still buzzing. There's still a little bit of buzz, and there's still a little hope in the air. And do you have any idea where I'm going with this?
Tulane?
No. The Cubic Pies are back.
Oh. Man, I hear those things are really hard to find right now. I thought they were back for like a day or two.
They delivered, I think, 10,000 on South Carrollton, not far from where I worked the other day. It was Tuesday, and they were all sold within 4 hours.
Goodness.
Now, the rule is you can only buy 2 of one flavor. They limit to 2 total per person for one flavor. That's the demand of these things. And everybody's talking about them. And I'll tell you what, since the factory burned, I think it was in 2012, it's back up and running. And, you need to visit your local grocery stores, wherever you can find them, get your hands on them, because they are a hot commodity right now.
They got chocolate, coconut, peach, pineapple. Then you have seasonal
Now, they
flavors.
have all those flavors, but I think the only 2 flavors that are available now are lemon and apple.
That's it. I mean, the traditional ones.
It.
That's the traditional
ones. That is correct.
Yeah, apple, lemon, peach, all that. I think they do blueberry and cherry and sweet potato at certain times of year. At least that's how it used to be. But if you want to come back with a bang, you just take something away for a while and then limit when you put it back on the market, whether it's intentional or just because that's the only way you can do it. And there will be a hot market for it. It's like when PS5s first went on sale. That's kind of what this cubic pie thing feels like. Well, you can only buy this, and people are selling these things on the open market. Now, I've had a cubic pie before, back when I was living in New Orleans, even back when I was in school. They sold it at the little convenience store on my campus. I don't know, man. They're good. They weren't my favorite. I've had them. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not. But part of it, Chris, as you know, is just because they're hard to get. If they'd been around the last 10 years, we probably would have never even brought up cubic pies in our conversation.
No, not at all. Not at all. But they're back, baby. They're back.
So did you get any?
No. The demand's too high. Supply's too low. And I'm just waiting my time until, the opportunity comes.
There it is. All right. He's waiting his time. Let me know how it goes. Whenever you get it, send me a picture or something.
I'll send you one.
You don't have to send me a pie. No. Don't. You eat the pie. I'm just saying. I just want to see the proof. All right. So, one other thing. This is probably not only important to you and I, but whatever, because we're going to get into Cajuns in a minute. I pointed out this week that I would not pay for anything on Twitter. I'm not paying for a blue check mark. I'm not paying for Twitter Blue. And some folks are like, well, you have a blue check mark. I know, but I didn't pay for it. And I won't pay for it. If they take it away, I don't care. Whatever. Big deal. You said you liked me better before I had a blue check mark because I wasn't one of, quote, them. What are you implying, Chris?
I'm implying the Dave Portnoy approach to it, the owner of Barstool. Don't get a blue check mark. Be one of us. Be like one of us, Scott. Come on now, get back in our corner.
Dave is not. You and I are alike. Dave is not like you or I at all.
The blue check mark brigade, I don't care for. I don't like. And ever since you went that route, you've lost a little bit of me. And then I tell you, you got a chance to redeem yourself here.
I didn't even do anything.
You're always welcome back.
I didn't even do anything. And now it doesn't even really matter because anyone can just buy one and make whatever.
My point.
I saw people buy some and they're like, I got verified, dude. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change anything. It didn't change anything other than just how my name appears on a screen. It really didn't. It's not like it opened up all these doors for me and my life was any different once it happened. It just happened. I'm like, oh, that's great. I I don't care.
Listen, Twitter's an evil, but it's a necessary evil. And I'm just sitting back and enjoying all the chaos that's being ensued right now. I love it.
It is. Chaos is the right word for it.
Chaos.
Chris Lanaux, our guest, a.k.a. Crippa, the Cajuns last night. Bounce back. I thought running the football would be key. It was. They ran it extremely effective. I thought it was their best special teams performance of the season. That the field position battle was clearly won by the Cajuns. You look at the box score after last night's game, and you'd say, "Man, I didn't realize they were so close in so many areas." But go look at starting field position and look at rushing yards, and that's where your big gaps are.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the stats, and Scott, I've always told you this, and we've talked about it for many years now. They don't really tell the true story because you watch the game, and it just really felt like a total dominating effort on Louisiana's part. And, I got to start off with the offensive line. I got to give them credit. Now, we knew going in this Georgia Southern, they had issues getting off of blocks along the defensive front and along the front seven. But still, I mean, you got to do what you have to do. I thought offensively, I thought it was a complete game. I thought just as a team, it was a complete game. And I was pleased overall last night. And I think, you're going into the final two games of the season where you got to win at least one of them. But, the big one against Florida State and Tallahassee, I feel better about. I'm not going to say I feel great, but I'll be there along with my wife and a lot of friends, and I'm sure Cajun Nation is going to be packing and taking a nice road trip as well. But I was pleased last night. I really was. I thought Michael Desimo did a really good job of managing the game. A couple, I wouldn't say a couple, but maybe everyone in the back of their minds, they have this one questionable decision on the fourth down on the second drive of the game for Louisiana, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But there's a lot of promise, and you look at the running backs with Draylon Washington and Zylan Perry, the two young guys, and Perry didn't get a whole lot of playing time yesterday, if not at all, if I can recall. But there's a lot of promise in that backfield, and I know the thing about the Louisiana tradition since the Tyrell Finroy days is a rich running back backfield, and I think you're going to have that for the next couple seasons.
Well, it was on point last night, and I as far as Ben Waldridge goes, I asked Coach last night after the game how he was physically because he looked, especially there in the second half, after one of the plays, he kind of came off. His arm it just didn't look right. I don't know. He went in the injury tent. He came back out. He went back on the field on the next series. So I'm not trying to make some story here, but I asked him about it afterwards, and he just said everyone's beat up this time of year, but he kind of he got beat up, and we'll know more tomorrow, and that was it. Hopefully he's okay, but what are you seeing in Ben physically right now? And obviously you've got an extra couple days off before your next game, but overall, where do you think he is physically? Because if he can play, he's not going to come off the field, Chris.
Well, I won't get too much into the injury part because I just don't know, but I'll answer your question on just as far as what I've seen from Ben and how he's progressed since he has taken over at the starting quarterback role. And I got to say, I mean, Ben, he looks tall in the pocket. I mean, there are some big quarterbacks that don't look as big when they're sitting in the pocket, and they have small quarterbacks who look big in the pocket. Ben's a big guy, and he looks big in the pocket. He looks comfortable. He sits back comfortable. And I really believe at this point in the season, he has truly taken command of this football team and of this offense. The big question about Ben, you've talked to a lot of people close to the program within the last couple of years, is he had issues grasping the offensive playbook. He was always a step or two behind on understanding the playbook. The talent was there. The potential was there. But he just could not seem to get on key with the offensive scheme. I think you're seeing that now. He's got his fingerprints all over, and I'm excited for him. I think Ben, I may get some hate mail for saying this. I think Ben could be a top 50 quarterback in college football. I really have high regard for the man. I think he's very good. And it's something that I've been thinking about the last couple of weeks, last 3 or 4 weeks, just watching him play. And just hypothetically, I like to think, man, if Ben was behind this 2019 offense that we had on display with that offensive line, that receiver and Jamarcus Bradley and those running backs, this guy would have excelled. I really do believe that. And he hasn't really had a whole lot to work with the running game. The running game in college football, you don't necessarily need to have it. It's not the NFL, but obviously it helps you in many aspects. But, the key in college football is just moving the ball. And the thing about college is you can substitute a lot of your passing plays to replace your run plays. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this offense now. But, the running game for the most part hasn't been there. That's hurt Ben, but you saw a lot of it last night, and hopefully it can continue to grow, in the last couple of games of the year. And hopefully with the off season, just you kind of fill in some holes along the offensive line. But I like Ben. I like Ben where he's at right now. And right now he is the starter, and he is not looking back.
Chris Lanaux, our guest. With that being said, Chris, how do you feel about that decision to go for it on fourth down early in the game from the 3-yard line, the one turnover of the game, also the one fourth down the Cajuns didn't convert, they were 4 of 5, rather than take the 3 early in that one?
Okay, so I'm an honest man. You know that, right, Scott?
I don't. If you say so, I'm just messing with you.
Okay, so on the first possession, on the 4th and 1 on the 49-yard line, I was sitting right there, I could not make the game. I had to work late. I didn't get home till about 6 o'clock. And there was no way I could make the game. I had to show back up at the office early this morning. But so I'm sitting there at home watching it, and I'm thinking, just punt the ball. It's early in the football game, 4th down and 1. We've had issues trying to get short yardage situations. But we convert, and 3 plays later we get a touchdown. So that's a great call on Mike's part. Now, the next possession, 4th and goal on the 3-yard line. You're up 7-0. To me, it just didn't make any logical sense to go for it on the 3. It's one thing you're on the 1-yard line, you think you could punch it in, but when you're on the 3, it's almost irrelevant because you're throwing the football no matter what. And listen, we don't really need to get too much into it because Mike, I noticed at halftime when I was listening in on the radio, he made that a point of emphasis with Cody Juneau to begin his halftime speech with Cody, his interview, bringing up that 4th down call. We probably shouldn't have gone for it there. It was a bad call, but he made the comment defensively. They did a good job at the very end of the half getting the ball back. So Mike knows it. He knows that. And, we've talked about it the last couple of weeks, a little bit of growing pains. And I just know Mike, the competitor in him, he wishes he had that one back. You take the points, you go up 10-0 in late in the first quarter, and you're feeling very good about kicking the ball off, putting your defense back on the field, who's done very well the first couple drives. But, it's just one of those things. But you don't get it, you don't convert, and it just seems like it was a little bit of a momentum shift. And next thing you know, before you blink, Georgia Southern, they just drive the ball down the field, and it's a tie ball game. And it just changes the entire complexity of the game. So, it's just I understand. There was probably a play call that Mike liked, but from logical, from just a football standpoint, it just didn't really make much sense. It was kind of puzzling. It was head scratching. But at the end of the game, at the end of the day, it didn't seem to come back to bite anybody in the you-know-what. And, overall, they were able to run away with it and just complete what I thought was a very good ball game for Louisiana.
What are you expecting a week from Saturday in Tallahassee?
Well, like I said, I'll be there. My wife is going to be there. A lot of my buddies, a lot of my former teammates that back in the day in the Bustle area, we decided to bring our wives for this matchup. So we're looking forward. We're going to make a little trip out of it. And, I don't know too much. I know Florida State had a 3-game skid where they lost back-to-back-to-back, and they've won the last 2. They play Syracuse this week at noon. I'm gonna watch that game. I'm gonna really take a look at Florida State and see what they look like, because I know they're a different ball team. Everyone's different from week 1 from when they played, 2 months ago. But I tell you what, though, don't count this team out. I like what Gerald Broussard said at the end of the radio show before they signed off. We're going to roll our sleeves up, and we're going to Tallahassee, and we're going to win. And I like that. And I agree with them. Expect to win, go to win. I like where this team, I know even though it's just one game, you're trending one game, you're only as good as your last game. That's the way I like to look at this sport. And it was a great effort last night, and it builds up a little confidence. You got to win one of the next two to get bowl eligible. Why not win the last two? And, I'll be there, and I can't wait to support them. But we'll see, Scott. We'll see. That's all I can say at this point.
How much would a bowl game, you have a certain group of individuals that say there are too many bowl games. I've never been one of those. My response is, so you want to watch less football? Like, what's your problem? There are a lot of bowl games. I get it. And there have been 1 or 2 years where a team got special permission to play in a bowl because they, weren't actually eligible. That's happened a few times. That does not happen the majority of the time. In fact, heading into this week, I want to say there were, maybe less than 20 teams that had already been eliminated from bowl contention, or 30. I mean, there's still a lot of teams playing for bowl eligibility. Excuse me. That game last night was a big one for the Cajuns in that regard. One more win, they're there. It doesn't guarantee you in a bowl. Certainly two would. But for a locker room, Chris, because you've talked about it, you never got to play in a bowl game. And it was something that when you were there, it meant a lot. This group of seniors at UL, they've played in bowl games. They have been part of the winningest era, at least as far as a 4-year stretch is going to go, or 5-year stretch, because you can count COVID for some of these guys. But certainly, the last 4, they've won more games than anyone else when all is said and done. Whenever they hang it up, they want to go out on a winning note. But for all the critics that are like, who cares about this or that, having played college football, knowing some of the guys on the team, certainly some guys on the staff, what does a bowl game mean to a team that isn't competing for a conference championship, that is, maybe going to be around 500, and from the outside, folks look at it a certain way. From the inside, how do you think a group like this is looking at getting to a bowl game?
Well, I think, me personally, I like to look at it through the lens of the player, and I eliminate all the noise, and I'll say this: just the opportunity to play one more game from a sport that you played your entire life, that just means everything. And because once you hang those cleats up, that's it. You're not taking them back. You're not going to take them back off the shelf. So, I just like to look at it from that perspective. I know the players, they would like to play one more game, and despite. If it is a New Orleans Bowl, I heard you talk about it earlier with the caller that called in. It could be, because I know New Orleans, they took the Sun Belt champion last year. So they're not obligated to take the Sun Belt champion, I want to say, through a certain window of so many years. So I think it leaves Louisiana eligible to play in their backyard in New Orleans. I think that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's accurate. We can look more into that. But that being said, I know these players, they want to continue playing. Why wouldn't you? And I think it's just great notoriety for the program. And, I remember that one year back in 2008, it was with Michael Desimo and Tyrell Fenroy, after we finished the last game of the season. We were waiting all day that Sunday to get a call, and we thought we had two destinations that were possible. It was it was a bowl game in Houston, and it was a bowl game possibly in Hawaii. And it just never came to fruition. And I just remember how it almost felt like debilitating in a way when Monday rolled around and you didn't get a call. So I know I can sense from the players today that they can receive that same feeling. And I don't wish that upon anybody. And, it's always good to extend your career, because once your career is done, that's it. And I would like to see these kids have another opportunity. They've overcame and accomplished so much, and they put so much effort into this program. Probably the most successful class we've ever seen, and probably will ever see in a very long time. And they deserve one more game, and I hope they get it. Extra
practices, all of the other things that come with it. Is that overstated in regards to significance, considering, look, you after the game, you're going away until the spring. It's going to be a different team next year. Or is that as important as a lot of coaches will tell you it is, at least to the media?
What do you mean by that exactly?
You get extra practices, right? You get extra time with the team, and I've heard coaches for years talk about how important that is, or how great it is, or how is that overstated? Is what I'm asking you. Is it? Are they overstating it to the media because you want to get into a bowl, you want to obviously promote all the positives, but like how much of an impact can that have on the next season? I guess is an easier way to ask the question.
Well, I'll say this. I know where you're going with this, and I'll say this. When people ask me, what do you miss most about college football, to me, it's the same answer every time. And I get the same response amongst my peers that I talk to that have been around the same situation as myself. It's the camaraderie within the locker room. And anything that can go on outside of life, outside of football, in life, I should say, it can always be resolved the second you walk into that locker room and you're with your guys, you're with your brothers. And I think extra time within that fraternity, it's a special fraternity. I think it's cherished. I really do believe that. And if I can just go back and just have another moment with my guys, with my teammates, my fraternity, just for one day, that's something that I would just relish on. And I think the players, they know that, they understand the importance of that, and they want to continue. They want to continue for that to go on. And as far as practice, as you get late into the season, the practices really tend to lighten up. They're lightened up right now. There's not a lot of banging going along, and it's not as crucial to the body, and so that's never an issue for these athletes. But I just know that they just like to continue just being a team just for a couple more weeks because it's just a great feeling, and I think they know that because they can sense the end in sight. They can feel it coming to an end, and they're not going to ever get it back. And it's special to be within that locker room, and they're going to want to have a couple more weeks together, and I can really assure that.
Chris Lanaux, our guest. Final thing for you on the Cajuns. Attendance is always a big topic of discussion. Everyone has a strong opinion about it, why it's bad, how it could be better, yada, yada. I just want the psychology side of it. Andre Jones told us last night, and I like Andre a lot. I enjoy his conversations. I can just listen to him talk. He's honest. He's upfront. He's fun, and he had a great game last night. But he said, kind of unsolicited, like, I don't really care about how many people are in the stands. I just care about the ones that are there, and it meant a lot to me that they were here. How much does a good or bad crowd, when you're not really sure? There are some places, Chris, where college players know, man, the stands are going to be full when we go out there. And there are other places where they're not, and you're not really sure how good or bad it's going to be. How much does the crowd impact on game day? I'm not talking about the obvious stuff, right? Well, third downs and noise, and you feed off of the energy. I'm just strictly talking about when the crowd is lower than you expect, or when the stands aren't that great, and you go out there. How much can that impact a player? They're going to say it doesn't, and maybe it doesn't. I don't know. I guess that's what I'm asking you. And I know every player is different, so the answer is going to be more of a generalization. But I think you know what I'm asking here.
Yeah, I do, and I'll say this. I'll preface with this. I'll go back to Billy Napier's players in the last couple of years where crowd attendance has been an issue, and it's been puzzling to many because we're going through the highest times of our program's history, and why is it like this? Why are the numbers so low? And the one thing I've noticed a few players on social media just kind of in responding to that is, they never been there before, or lack of a better way, a more appropriate way of stating it. Just, we've never seen you out here before. It's not going to change anything. And, they would just go out there, they would play, and they would play their tails off, their butts off. It wouldn't affect them. Now, I remember back in the day for myself that, we've had some big crowds. And I remember specifically in homecoming against Middle Tennessee one year, I think that might have been 2008 it was. It was a heck of a crowd. Now, we didn't come out with a victory, but it impacted the game. And, I remember how much it felt. And it was just almost it was, you can kind of feel it, a little bit in the sense that when you're on the football field, just, you make the comment third down noise. That's all true to a large degree, but it's also good going into each week just knowing that you feel appreciated because of the work that you put into. But, I think it's going to be a question of concern in the years to come in this offseason. Now, I don't know what they're going to do with the stadium, physically, if they're going to revamp that upper deck. I don't know what the plans are. But, it's just we got to get together. We got to get our heads together, and something's got to be done because right now it just doesn't seem like the enthusiasm is there, but the product is there for the taking. We've been so successful the last several years, and I don't have the answer, Scott. I just don't know at this point, but just definitely something you just got to take a hard look into.
All right, and lastly, the Pelicans play tomorrow. The Saints play Sunday. Am I going to have a good weekend or a bad weekend?
You'll always have a good weekend because you'll wake up, your kids will be right around you.
No. Stop with that stuff. I'm talking strictly in the world of sports.
I tell you what, it's always this season for the Saints. It's been like a pendulum. But maybe one side wavering a little bit more than the other. Yeah, I do expect to win this weekend. Pelicans, basketball is just so hard to figure out. I can't figure out the sport. Damian Lillard out last night, and you're at home, and you drop one against a team that you should have beaten. I don't understand it, but I'm gonna go ahead and say, Scott. The sun's out today. It's bright. The weather feels great. Cajuns come off a victory. I think this trend's going to continue at least throughout the weekend. So I'm praying for you.
Oh wow. Okay. Thank you. Chris Lanaux has been our guest. At Crippa Bear on Twitter. Chris, man, appreciate the talk. Appreciate everything from Hubic pies to verification to UL and other things in there as well, man. Always good having you on the show, and I know I'll be talking to you off the air, whether it be via text or whatever, but all the best, man, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
Thank you, my friend.
You got it. That is Chris Lanaux.